one said his name lightly. In the glass towers of Manhattan, he was a legend and a warning. Victor Langford, the most feared billionaire on Wall Street. Ruthless, calculating, untouchable. Entire companies collapsed after one of his decisions. Careers ended after a single meeting with him. And yet, no one really knew anything about his personal life. He didn't give interviews, never attended parties, no scandals, no eccentricities, just an eerie silence surrounding his presence. But there was one odd thing. Every December 24th, exactly at 6 p.m., he vanished, disappeared from Langford Capital's headquarters and wasn't seen again until the morning of the 26th. No assistant, no security detail, no driver ever followed. No one knew where he went. For years, it was just another layer of mystery around him. Until I, Claire Bennett, received an assignment that changed everything. I was new at the firm, just another analyst in a sea of suits. And yet, on December 23rd, I was summoned to his office. Without looking up from his papers, he said, "You're coming with me tomorrow, and tell no one." I couldn't sleep that night. I had heard the stories, legends really, about Victor Langford, that he was born to Swiss bankers, that he once slept in homeless shelters, that he shut down an entire foundation because a report was late. No one knew what was true, but everyone knew what he caused. Fear. So why me? Why choose someone no one knew, someone without any connection? The morning of the 24th, a black car waited outside my building at 6 a.m. No driver. Just an envelope on the passenger seat with my name and a note, written in that same bold handwriting. Wear comfortable clothes. Ask no questions. By noon, Victor entered the car, dressed in a dark coat and scarf. No suit. No trace of the Wall Street giant. Ready? He asked. I nodded silently. Less than an hour later, we left the city. The skyline faded behind us as we entered an old neighborhood lined with leafless trees and faded brick homes. The car stopped in front of a modest red brick building. No sign, no staff. Victor stepped out and motioned for me to follow. From this moment on, he said, you'll see what no one else ever has. We entered through a side door that led into a hallway smelling faintly of coffee and disinfectant. There were soft voices echoing from a nearby room. Children, laughter. A gentle Christmas melody playing low. I followed him into a warmly lit space with small string lights draped along the windows. And then I saw it. At least 30 children were there, some playing on worn rugs, others writing on scraps of paper. In the corner stood a modest Christmas tree, decorated with paper stars and handmade ornaments. When Victor stepped in, something changed. The children lit up. "Tio Victor!" they cried, rushing to him. He smiled, truly smiled, and knelt to hug each one, calling them by name, remembering their faces, their voices. I stood frozen, watching. This wasn't the same man from the office. A gray-haired woman walked up to me and whispered kindly, "You're new, aren't you?" I nodded. "He comes every year," she said. "Always alone. Always on Christmas Eve." "But what is this place?" I asked quietly. She smiled. "A temporary home, for children with nowhere else to go. And he's our silent angel." Victor wrapped presents, poorly but lovingly, with tape that stuck to his fingers. He sliced fruit in the kitchen, swept the playroom after snack time. This was not the Victor Langford I knew from the office. Here, he wasn't giving orders. He was simply there. The children adored him. Each had a nickname for him, a story, an inside joke. He remembered them all. At one point, a small girl with curly hair handed him a drawing. "It's you and Mommy in heaven," she said. He froze. His eyes flickered, but he didn't speak. He just knelt and hugged her tightly. Later that evening, after the children were tucked in on makeshift mats and cots, he sat beside me in the hallway. "Why did you pick me?" I asked. He didn't look at me, just stared at the string lights on the ceiling. "Because you still look people in the eye," he said. And then, for the first time, he told me why this place, this night, mattered to him. Her name was Maya, he said, voice barely above a whisper. My daughter. The hallway fell into a deeper silence. Even the light bulbs seemed to hold their breath. She was 8, the best part of me. I didn't speak, just listened. She was born when I had nothing. I worked triple shifts, slept 4 hours a night, but life was simple, and she smiled at everything. He paused, swallowed. One winter, I took on a deal that could change everything. It meant leaving for Christmas. I thought I'd make it up to them later. His jaw tightened. On December 24th, they went out to buy bread. A truck lost control. Neither of them made it. My heart dropped. Since then, he said, staring down the hall, I come here, every year, alone. These children, most have no one. And I… He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. That night we slept in the shelter, Victor on a small sofa. I curled into a lumpy armchair borrowed from the staff room. By dawn, he was already up, sorting through toys and packing winter clothes into brown paper bags. I joined him silently. This wasn't charity for the sake of publicity. There were no cameras, no journalists, only real hands doing quiet work. Before we left, Victor handed the gray-haired woman an envelope. For the lights, should last through next winter, he said. She didn't count the money. She just hugged him. In the car, on the way back to Manhattan, we drove in silence. Until he said, no one at the office will know, not now, not ever. I nodded, then he added, but now that you've seen it, I hope you never forget. He stepped out of the car and vanished into the glass and steel of the city, like he always did. The days that followed were a blur. Back at Langford Capital, he was back to being cold, sharp, and distant. Meetings were fast, his tone clipped. He didn't acknowledge me once, as if Christmas Eve had never happened. But something inside me had changed. I started noticing people, really noticing. The tired eyes, the restrained smiles, the small gestures that went unseen. I understood what he meant by, you still look people in the eye. Even under the weight of billions in power, there was humanity, buried. At the end of January, I found a white envelope on my desk. No name, no return address. Inside, one sentence. Compassion isn't measured by words but by silence. And below it, an address. The same place from Christmas. I returned to the shelter the following month. The children remembered me. They ran into my arms like I belonged. And maybe I did. I began volunteering every month, helping with homework, telling bedtime stories, holding hands during fevers. Victor was never there outside of Christmas, but his presence lingered in every corner. One afternoon, while stringing paper stars with the kids, the gray-haired woman pulled me aside. He never spoke of you. But he left this. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a locket. Gold. Simple. Inside the locket, a faded photo of Victor carrying a girl on his shoulders. Maya, she said softly. On the back of the photo, written in his hand, love doesn't die. It becomes care. Everything made sense. Victor wasn't seeking forgiveness. He was seeking purpose. He had taken his greatest wound and turned it into a quiet mission. Not for attention, not for praise, but to keep something alive. Not his name, but her memory. From that day on, I began writing, documenting the shelter, the stories, the laughter, the handmade stars, never naming names, just hoping someone, somewhere, would read them and do the same. And then the unexpected happened. In late November, Victor summoned me to his office. You'll come with me again this year, he said. I smiled. I was planning to. He nodded. This time you're coming because you want to, not because I told you to. From then on, we went together every year, never speaking of it at work, never exchanging glances in the office, but every Christmas Eve at exactly 6 p.m., he would vanish from the world and reappear where it mattered most. By the third year, one of the boys, Nico, just 6, wrapped his arms around Victor and whispered, "You're my heart, Dad, right?" Victor paused, then knelt to eye level. "Yes," he said. "I am." I watched, eyes stinging. From that year forward, Victor brought more than donations. He brought books, stories, warmth. He brought presents. And outside those shelter walls, the world still feared him, the feared billionaire of Wall Street. But inside, he was just a man healing through kindness. The following year, headlines buzzed. Langford sells stake in company, donates $300 million to anonymous children's initiative. No one knew who was behind it, except me. "You're giving up control," I said. "I'm learning to let things move without my grip on everything," he replied, then added, "Have you thought about starting something of your own?" I hesitated, but I had known the answer for months. "Yes," I said, "and I finally know what it is." Together we created a network, a quiet, nameless chain of shelters and outreach programs focused not on just housing children, but healing them. No branding, no media, no public announcements, only compassion, structure, and presence. Victor remained feared on Wall Street, but every December 24th at 6 p.m., he became someone else, someone no one recognized, someone only a few of us truly knew. And in those quiet halls, among children who couldn't spell his name, he found something he thought he'd lost forever: peace. On our 5th Christmas together, Nico, now 10, stood on a chair and read a poem he'd written. "We don't choose the day we're born, but we can choose who we want near at Christmas. You chose us. And now, we choose you too." Victor lowered his eyes. He didn't cry, but in that silence I knew something in him had finally healed. I placed a hand on his. "Merry Christmas, Victor," I whispered. He smiled softly. "It finally is." I returned to the shelter that year without him. The kids asked, of course, "Where's Mr. Victor? Will he come later? Did he forget us?" I told them what I knew, which was nothing. I smiled, hugged them, distracted them with games and cookies. But deep down, a part of me was restless, worried. The tree was up, the stars were hung, the room was filled with joy. But something was missing. At midnight, I stepped outside into the cold, letting the snow fall quietly over my shoulders. I stared at the street, empty. For the first time in years, he hadn't come. In January, I received a call from a notary. There was a sealed document left in my name, left by Victor Langford. It contained no legal terms, no business matters, only a handwritten letter. "Claire, I always knew you'd understand the silence better than the noise. If you're reading this, then I've finally stopped running. Not from the world, but from myself. You know what to do next. Don't let it end with me." Underneath was a foundation document, a transfer of all assets related to the shelter network, signed and notarized, dated the previous year. He had planned this all along. I sat with that letter for hours. The Victor I had known, feared billionaire, strategic mind, relentless force, had always been moving toward this moment. Not an end, a handoff. He had built the system. He had proven it could work. Now, it was my turn to carry it forward. The next Christmas Eve, I arrived early. The tree was bigger, the stars were brighter. More children than ever ran through the halls. And just before the caroling began, a boy tugged on my sleeve and asked, "Are you the new Victor?" I laughed and cried. "No, sweetheart," I said, "but I think he sent me." Years passed. The shelters grew, quietly, humbly. No press releases, no grand openings. But lives were changing, quietly, powerfully. One Christmas Eve, a young woman named Elena approached me after dinner. She had been one of the first children Victor ever helped, though she hadn't known his name back then. She now ran a youth literacy program in the Bronx. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I don't remember his face, but I remember how he made me feel, safe, seen." That was his legacy, not buildings, not donations, presence. I still think of him every Christmas Eve. Sometimes I light a candle beside the tree. Sometimes I read one of his old letters aloud to the staff. Sometimes I simply sit in the quiet and listen. Because I believe, no, I know, that in some way he's still here. In every star on the tree, in every child's smile, in every quiet moment of kindness that no one else sees. He was the feared billionaire of Wall Street, but to us, he was simply the man who never forgot Christmas Eve.